It was full. It's nice, full, open. Good way to start 2022.
Well, like you said, I did not hear it, but I'm sure it picked it up. Not the best way to start 2022. Have 9 inches of snow outside, so that sucks. But
Yeah, we were
it is what it is.
in Louisville, a little farther north. We were like on the far edge of the system, so we got like two, maybe three throughout yesterday. Wasn't a whole lot, but yeah, you sent me a picture and it was like your entire like back deck table had. You could see like it was 8-9 inches. It was nuts.
I don't even care about that. I just get annoyed when I can't drive around, or like other people drive very ignorantly, I guess, less cautiously than I would in the ice. But
Well, see,
you know
you
what?
guys got
It's
you
all good.
guys got enough snow to where you can justify like, oh, I'm gonna hole up in my house for like 2 days before a lot of this melts. So we got the annoying like 2 to 3 inches where it pretty much just the roads are slush and shit and it's terrible, just annoying and wet all over the place and not a good time. But
But regardless, we're back, ready to hop into 2022. Um, we'll have an awesome guest, which we'll introduce here in just a second. But yeah, I'll let Mike take away all the stuff, the upfront stuff here.
yeah, here the housekeeping stuff. Let's see if I can. It's been about a month since the last podcast. We'll see if I don't screw this up. So. Welcome, everyone, to the Aged Out Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Mike Fantini, and with me, as always, is...
Evan Worrell.
And if you're listening on YouTube today, make sure you hit subscribe, drop a comment in the comment section to let us know what you think about anything and everything we said here today. All that stuff helps the algorithm. We like interacting with everybody. We do our best to interact with as much of it as we can. Unfortunately, we don't get to all of it because we have a lot of other stuff on our plates and our personal lives and everything, but we appreciate it all the same. Check out the podcast if you're on podcast services, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. We're on all those places. Easy to find us. Hit follow there. Check out social media, Facebook, Instagram, at Aged Out Podcast. Never miss an update. And the podcast is sponsored by Lone Star Percussion. Use the discount code Aged Out. Save yourself $10 on any order of $50 or more. Everybody wins in that, us, Lone Star, and you. So go check that out, lonestarpercussion.com. And lastly, if you want to just give any kind of financial support to what Evan and I do here with this podcast and the YouTube channel, you can head over to patreon.com/agedoutpodcast. You can donate as little as $1 a month. And if you can't donate anything, you support us enough by just listening, subscribing to YouTube, all that stuff. How'd I do? Did I hit it all?
That was pretty seamless.
All right.
I'll give you a little applause for that. But yeah, I'll get into it here and introduce our guest, a guy who is native to Kentucky and also currently residing back in the Bluegrass State, but has been well-traveled around the country and the world as well. Joining us is Mr. Jared Andrews. Welcome, dude.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Yeah, that's good to kind of connect. I know we've been in similar proximity at several band shows and obviously live in the same state now.
And on the same track, yeah.
Yeah, you just kind of see people in passing like, oh, there's Jared going to the lot, or there's so-and-so going to the lot. But yeah, man, it's good to just kind of sit down and hang and catch up and hear a little bit more about you, dude.
Absolutely. Would you like me to tell you a little about myself?
Yeah, absolutely. Just, I don't know, how you got into drumming, how you got into, like, I don't know, was it 5th grade, 6th grade band? Maybe just hit on that. Some inspirational figures in your early days, kind of mentors guided you.
Yeah, man. I mean, I started, probably like a lot of percussionists do. I mean, things are much better now, especially because a lot of people are, at least if they're not band directors, there's a lot of music coaches out there that are actually putting a lot of effort in. I had a music coach, a guy named Todd Wright, who taught a lot of successful people in Kentucky. And he actually got me started in middle school. And I remember the first thing he taught me was a paradiddle. Classic, right? That's like what everybody learns. And that's what everybody who doesn't, play drums knows what it is. So it was cool. That was the first thing I learned. And I ended up doing marching band in 8th grade. So I did it 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th. And, just the little things, did all-state band and all-district band. When I was in high school, our band had never made it to state finals. In Kentucky, it's actually pretty tough. It's a small state, but every band is pretty much in one circuit. And that circuit only has 4 bands from each class perform at finals. So it's actually really tough to get into Kentucky finals. And,
And I would say that Kentucky is actually a pretty competitive, like small band state. Like we don't have a lot of like the bigger groups like that you would see, like the Avon, Carmel, Texas, but like the small classes, like what BOA would consider Class A. A lot of really competitive bands like that size, which is kind of what Shelby County was then, if I remember right.
Yeah. I mean, at that time, I would say we were a Class A style. Although we would have, I don't believe we would have ever survived at that level at that time. But it was really cool to finally make finals, and that was something that happened my last 2 years of high school.
Nice.
But it's funny, I don't think much about that, as it was kind of like the springboard. But I know that we all shared quite a few same instructors, and I'm just going to throw their names out there because they were awesome. Justin Fisher, Brian Eisert. Who was the other guy we were chatting about earlier?
Chris Logue was at
Chris
my high school.
Oh yeah, Chris Logue.
Down in Texas
he's the only man who never wears sleeves, even in the winter.
Because he's so hairy.
He doesn't need sleeves.
I got to jump in for a second before we get too far from it and into more of the drum corps, how you got into all that stuff. But so I was a Todd Wright kid too. He taught me in high school for my junior and senior year was when he came to my high school. But he tells a story about how you got in to marching band, and I want you to confirm, because I've been wanting to ask you this forever. He tells the story of how you got into it as you were a football player and you were starting in middle school band. And he knew from the get-go, like, you just kind of naturally, like, your hands worked. Like, the way you naturally grip the sticks, like, it just made sense to you. He claims that he was trying to push you into marching band and percussion and all that stuff. And you were kind of divided between whether you wanted to play football. But he says you ended up, like, breaking your wrist or breaking your arm or something. And then that kind of just, like, made the decision for you. Is there any truth to that at all, or is he making shit up?
There is all of that is fairly true up to the broken bone. I've never broken any bones, dude. No, that is like that one is definitely somebody pulled that one out of the dumpster for sure. But no, I mean, my dad was a football coach. He played college football, high school football, and he was a local coach. So he was also my Pee Wee coach. He taught, coached me in the Pee Wee league and then the middle school league. And then when it was time it was like, I could either do marching band in 8th grade or I could finish out middle school football. And honestly, at the time, band was more fun. My friends were in the band. Not too many. I think I had about half friends in the band, half friends were football players. But my closest friends at the time were in the band. And, I don't know if anybody else did this, but at that time, at that age, I used to get massive headaches from football practice. And so that was actually one of the defining factors, was that I actually just couldn't stop getting headaches after practices. But it was tough because my dad, sad moment, my dad didn't come to like any marching band stuff until I was like a senior because he was so bummed that I didn't play football. Classic baby boomer father, just disappointed as shit, just moved on with his life. Because, he was a football player. He played football. He didn't want his son to be in the marching band, dude. But I loved it and I stuck it out. So that's the real story.
Okay. I just had to ask. All right, now Evan, take it away. Keep it moving.
No, but like you said, we had a lot of the same instructors. I think a lot of those guys came from like, or at least Justin and Chris, like Eric Ward and that sort of like time.
Eric was the bomb. Nobody nowadays knows who Eric Ward is, but he's a legend in his own right.
And it's a damn shame.
At Henry Clay, we referred to him as Yoda.
Dude, I feel. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I got so excited. I was just going to say, there was so many things that when I started my career at RCC, I was pretty young, and most of my knowledge of how to teach in tech was based off Eric and Tom Ongst and John.
John Merritt.
No. John, what's his name? He was the quad tech from like 96 to 2002 at the Cadets. John Burbank.
Oh,
he'll be so mad at me if he listens to this podcast. He's a good friend. I've been to his house. He's a good guy. Those three gentlemen were excellent drum corps technicians, teachers, motivators. So they don't get John. Nobody knows about John. Nobody knows about Eric. And both those guys are legends. They would do a great job today if they were there.
Well,
yeah,
Eric's
we always compared. Go ahead, Mike.
Eric's one of those we want to have on here. The guy that taught me in high school.
You can find him.
Well, so I have a connection. So the guy that taught me to drum, and I was later taught by Todd Wright, is Damon Smith, who marched Cadets in '94.
Yes.
I think he was actually on tour with the Cadets a little bit, doing something with Eric when you were marching.
Yes, and Damon came to Morehead quite a bit when I was there.
Yeah.
He was our Met guy. He was the Met guy.
Yeah, so like he marched Cadets in the early 90s, taught me to drum, and he still has Eric's number, talks to him regularly. They were like roommates at Morehead, like, so I'm gonna try to use that Damon connection. We're gonna try and make this happen at some point.
You should hit me up because I know that Eric was teaching jazz as well, and he was a big Thelonious Monk fan. And I recently I would never show anybody, but I have been practicing jazz vibes a little bit. And I wanted to pick his brain, actually. So it's funny you mentioned it, and here we are having a normal human conversation in the middle of this podcast. But let's circle back on that here in about 45 minutes.
Deal.
Yeah.
Deal.
Segue. Great segue, actually. So we brought up Morehead and also our instructors in high school, Todd.
Oh, I also taught with Eric at Glassman. Forgot to mention that.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. 07? We'll get there.
Yeah.
But
no, we don't have to talk about that. That's all right.
So I wanted to go to Morehead, and you can share your inspiration for going to Morehead too. But I had just heard so many stories from Chris and Justin about like their experiences at Morehead and like how much fun they had and like how good they got at drumming, and like yeah, we just go sit out on the wall and like there'd always be someone out there drumming, and we just bust our pads and drum till like 2 or 3 in the morning. So that was my inspiration to go. What led you to your stint at Morehead?
It was really similar. I mean, most of the people that my first contact with it, mature players were all from Morehead. Because Todd was our instructor, we did the Morehead Day of Percussion all 5 years I was in the marching group. And then I used to do the Morehead, they did like a band day. I'm not trying to remember what it was.
Blue and gold.
Yeah, something like that. Well, no, not the marching band thing. They did like a concert band.
Yeah,
it's like an all district thing, but it was
yeah.
For that. I can't remember what it was called, but so I used to go out for that as well. So I actually auditioned at UK and Morehead. I got a scholarship at Morehead, and then I had already kind of knew that I wanted to go, and so that's why I headed out that way. But I was only there for 2 years though.
Is that kind of like what fueled you or like pushed you to go to eventually to Cadets? Because I know there was a few people at Morehead that marched Cadets, but you may have been the first, right, in 2002 of like the Kyle Lee, Seth Whitaker kind of group.
Yeah, the last person to march Cadets was Eric Ward.
Okay.
From there, and I didn't go to Morehead then audition for Cadets. I auditioned for Cadets in high school.
Oh wow!
And then I made it when I was a senior, and actually all days started before graduation. So I flew out, did 2 weeks of all days, flew back, did my ceremony, and then flew back out for the rest of the tour. And then I came to Morehead fresh off tour, and my roommate was Kyle Lee.
Nice.
Seth was still a senior, and then our sophomore year, Seth came to Morehead, and then that year is when everybody. Well, I guess Kyle was in 03, and then the following year, Seth came in 04.
Right on. So that's nuts. March Cadets your senior year of high school after your senior year. That was that 02 6-man quad line too, wasn't it?
Yes. Legendary. I mean, it's hard to say it was legendary because back in the day, I mean, Madison was truly the legendary large quad line core. But I don't know, and somebody can comment on this in the comments, but I can't think of any drum line, at least since 1992, let's just say 30 years, that one high percussion with 6 quads, except for Cadets 02. I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure.
You came in the middle of the tear. You stayed at Cadets for 02, 03, and 04, right? So
correct.
Zach was in there holding it down. Zach
Yes.
Schlicker, who taught me at Crown both summers I was there in 2009, 2010.
Yes.
Zach would always tell so many funny stories of just like, yeah, I sat there and played the snare feature with the center snare, and we played it clean 50 times in a row. And I'm just like, okay, Zach, I don't even know how to relate to that. I'm too tired to play the snare feature. Like,
yeah, 50.
He was just like one of the most driven people like I've ever been around.
Yeah, he was a little on that. There's definitely difference. I mean, that was the beauty of my experience between going from the Cadets, Kentucky, and then to the West Coast and doing it all. Because like that is one way to do it, for sure. That's one way to do it.
Right. So you won your 2 drum trophies, and then 04 was that was the year that you all played all the super fast heritage. I was like, man, there's a lot of heritage. So then you did decide to go out to West Coast. What was the motivation for going from? You just spent 3 years at Cadets, won 2 drum trophies in those years. Now I'm gonna take my chance and see what Blue Devils have to offer.
Yeah, it actually it's kind of like all right. In 2003 at Morehead, there was a guy who had some VHS tapes of Blue Devils 2000 in the lot. And we used to hang out in the dorm rooms and watch those and learn the parts and stuff. And at this time, I had already marched one season at Cadets. 2000 sounds old, but at that time it was just 3 years before or 2 years before. So then the following year, 2003, Vern Johnson comes on staff, and he was a Blue Devil, the quad tech. And Tim Jackson at that time had made the quad line at a random audition at WGI finals. So there was somebody that I knew that was marching Blue Devils, and I was kind of interested, but I was a cadet through and through. And then I came back in 2004. I was the section leader of the quad line, and I was, like I said, a cadet through and through. And that summer, just sadly, there was two things. It kind of broke me in terms of my love for the Corps, but there was a guy who marched, and he was Japanese, and his name was Hajime Nogami. And he's actually a Yamaha artist in Japan, still plays and teaches, and actually has a YouTube channel, does some really cool stuff. He was playing quads like I'd never seen in my life. I thought I was a cadet quad player. I was a section leader. I thought I was hot shit. And to be honest with you, he was playing things that I could not play. Independence patterns, just crazy rounds. And the way he looked when he played it, I just liked it. I don't know. It was just aesthetically, pleasing. Keep in mind, there was no internet, so I wasn't watching YouTube videos. So anyway, he was awesome. So
right, you had to wait for your Vic Firth videos to buffer for 30 minutes before you could watch your 2-minute clip.
Yeah. Well, and you didn't know what was out there. You just kind of knew your thing, and you did it, and you saw it at the time over the season. And then, like you said, you might get to see those Vic Firth clips in August or September or whatever. But he was badass. And so he lived in Riverside. He went to Riverside Community College, RCC. He was in the fall marching band there. And I was not enjoying my time at Morehead. It was an overload, something you learn as you get older. I was trying to do too many things, and I was being asked to succeed at too many things. And eventually I just kind of frazzled out and ended up looking for something else. And then the way he played, I realized that I wasn't as good of a quad player as I thought I was, and that it was time for me to evolve. And everybody he was playing with was from RCC or Blue Devils. So I moved to California after tour. That was the Tour of Champions, that the last time that they went to the West Coast. And right. I never came home. I called my parents and I said, I'm going to stay in California. And I did.
Couple things there I want to hit on. 2000 Blue Devils, awesome show, Methods of Madness. Actually, 2000 and 2001.
Some of the sickest. Dude, if people watch this podcast, probably don't even know. Away At A Blue is dope too. But that took the beats in 2000. If you just search that, YouTube, the lot, there is some wacky rhythms in there and some very cool interplay. And the quad book was out of this world, in my opinion. I think
that was one of my first DCI DVD videos, 2000 and 2001 Blue Devils. I think 2000 was also the year they had that crazy pit at Celerando through that wild ride chart or something like that. Like every bar is like a new time or a new time signature. Dude, they just rip it. Awesome.
Yeah,
show.
It's sick.
And then you said you knew Tim Jackson before you auditioned at BD. Is that right?
Yeah, the guy that I stood next to at Cadets was an original Rhythm X founding member, and he went to high school with Tim Jackson, and Tim went to March Rhythm X, and then
it wasn't Mike McKenna, was it?
No, Mike came in a year after. This is a guy named Adam Clements, and yeah, redheaded gentleman. He's about 6'1", tall dude. Yeah, he doesn't drum anymore. I think he's an engineer or something like that. And anyway, so Tim ended up marching Crossman. Well, YEA was Crossman and Cadets at the time, so we did our all days at the same facility. So Tim was in the quad line at Crossman. Adam and I were in the quad lines at Cadets. So I hung out with them. pretty regularly. As much as I could handle, I was pretty tired at that age. I could barely handle it, to be honest with you.
And
sleeping.
you are so right. Like, I don't know how to explain it to people. And I always talk to a good friend of mine who plays quads now, which who you taught, Dean Hickman.
I talked to Dean today, actually. That's crazy.
Yeah, I saw you post on his Facebook or whatever.
Yeah,
I was actually yeah.
Small
I was at Dean's house. I was at Dean's house for New Year's Eve. He had some people over. Dean was in my wedding. I was in his wedding type thing. But I would just tell him, and like what you were alluding to, when I would watch like those BD, especially at that time, early 2000s, and it still holds true today. There's just something about the fluidity and the motion around the drums. I tell him it looks like aliens playing drums. I don't even understand. I don't understand how it is.
It's a different world. It's quad drumming mecca is what Blue Devils was for a long time. Probably still is a little bit, I think.
Yeah, well, if you really want me to share my opinion on how it's changed, we can do that when the time comes. But I think a lot of it, and I'll start it, really came with Jeremy Summers going to Blue Coats.
Oh,
but
man.
no one will know who Jeremy Summers is either, although he's probably one of the best quad players in the world still.
So Jeremy was the quad tech.
Brother.
Yeah, actually, fun fact. We'll let you know into this real quick. So Jeremy was the quad tech in 2012 at Blue Coats, when that was my age out summer in the snare line at Blue Coats. So I know Jeremy from that. And I guess somehow, I don't know if his brother drums, but his brother messaged us after the episode with, I think was it Brandon Zaki?
Brandon Zaki,
Evan?
yeah.
And he goes, hey, Jeremy would never reach out to you guys, but here's his cell phone number. Text him.
Yeah, I could do a podcast on Jeremy, to be honest with you. I mean, when I started teaching at RCC, he actually was in the quad line at Esperanza. So that was the first drum corps I taught, and 3 of the 5 people ended up being RCC quad players. So anyway, Jeremy.
Before you go into this,
I know you gotta be careful, bro. I'll start taking lefts, man.
No, you're good. Before you do that, I just want to point out you're not the first person to be on here that say Jeremy Summers was the reason for like the West Coast quad lines being what they were for that era, for that whole time period. I heard you're not the first person to say that.
I heard Sean Vega cried when he aged out.
Yeah.
I think we all did, man. Yeah. I mean, Jeremy was because Jeremy aged out of RCC in 2010. I aged out of indoor in 2006. So I was with Jeremy for 7, 8, 9, 10, 4 years. We worked together at RCC, and I got a lot out of teaching him. I really did. I learned a lot. There's still things that I can remember he did that I still don't do or don't teach, but there's a lot of stuff. He was just very creative, very smooth, had a great integrity to him as a member, and always prepared, and of course he just play anything, dude. And if he couldn't, he could the next time you saw him for sure.
He basically trained his fellow RCC marching members from that, what was it, La Quinta High School with like Nick and Scott and all those dudes. I was just like, I remember I saw a video of that high school one time.
Was it the one, what were they on the risers? That one?
Yeah, I was like, what the hell is happening right now?
This is how crazy I am. I know that was 2008. I even know what year that was. That was SCPA Open Class 2008. I don't even think they made it to finals. I don't think they medaled. But yeah, they're pretty sick. Ike Jackson designed that show. Little fun tidbit for you.
There you go.